Today, we're going to be talking about leadership in business, the leadership skills you need to grow a successful business. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Property Hustler Show. My name is Andrew, and today Ping and I are joined by Dan Guest, who is the visionary behind Guest Plumbing and HVAC. He is a community leader and longtime real estate investor. So, Dan, great to have you on the show.
Looking forward to it, man. Thanks for having me.
My background's actually in construction, right? And one of the things I feel I'm always trying to figure out how to tap into, especially when it comes to people who are in the trades getting into real estate, right? Yep. Or some kind of trade getting into real estate, whether you start your own business and then get into real estate. I feel like they actually have an advantage that they don't even realize. There is definitely a mindset aspect where, is a lot of cash, right? And people don't understand that, pay your taxes and you actually have real estate leverage. But if they can just figure out how to bridge that, people who are in the trades can kill it in real estate.
Crush it.
Yeah. Again. So
yeah, we could talk about, if you wanted to talk about at the entry level of business.
Yeah.
I told a guy, I'm mentoring a guy right now, opening an electrical firm. He's got this great job. He's making $100,000 a year, right? And then he's about to go be a nothing to the bank. The day he quits is the day his credit just goes to zero. So not your credit score per se, but your lending ability. Now you're a new business. So, the difference between incorporating and sole proprietorship, simple in my opinion, is don't be scared of taxes, understand the tax law and get right into it. And especially the first couple of years of business, now that the housing prices are going so high, $100K is not a lot of money anymore. When it comes to, sole owner of the house, if your wife's not making an income, property's $600-700K.
You can qualify.
So even having that ability to be a tradesperson that has those ins, you can't get it.
What was your recommendation to him then? Because he obviously earns over 100K,
yep.
And then now he wanted to start his own company. Mm-hmm. Did you ask him to try to maximize his credit before he does that?
Exactly. Maximize his credit, lines of credit, different banks, didn't matter. I said, go everywhere. I said, and you don't have to tell them the story. They can't take it away unless there's valid reason to. And once you have the line of credit, they're not asking you where it's moving or going to. You just pay. And usually sometimes on the residential side, you're paying less interest on the line of credit than you would commercial. So in the first couple of years, it's a challenging space to be. And that's where I think you can really make that difference.
Right. So try to just work for someone else, maximize your credit as much as possible, get into real estate before you start doing any of your own business, basically.
Yeah. Unless you've got a huge ability of lending, I think that's a huge benefit.
You obviously started off as a plumber. Did you find that being in that, let's just say being in that work environment, being in the trades, did you find that that it was easy to kind of grow your mentality, or did you ever feel like you were stuck?
No, definitely. I mean, before I became a plumber, I was stuck, right? Getting my plumbing apprenticeship was boom. That I went from labor to something.
Yeah.
And going from labor to something, that gave me the opportunity to say I had a position. It was almost like I made it to a college or university degree at some point. So that was really interesting when I overcame that challenge. The difference between the next stage is I didn't know what was possible because my mentors were inside companies that I worked for. So I got into I always wanted to be in real estate, not business. My first passion was real estate. I learned from a guy named Jordan Fortino. He did personal finance at McMaster. He taught a course and he owned a painting company. Stopped me one day. I was making $34 an hour as a licensed plumber at a big firm in Stony Creek. And he was like, what are you doing with your cash? I'm living at my mom's basement, having good nights on the weekends, but no money. I had a couple grand. He goes, what are you doing? You've got to level up. And I just didn't think it was possible. Single income, no girlfriend, no wife. Parents didn't have any money. There was no inheritance, nothing like that.
But that must mean you must be saving like crazy.
Saving like crazy, but no expenses.
Yeah.
Living at home at my mom's basement. She's a good cook.
Yeah.
So it just took that switch of you can do this, you can save, and also seeing somebody that had done it. And my thought was always to get into real estate because my mentor within the organization that I worked for, he seemed pretty happy. I was 22, he was 32. Leo Pernice, he's awesome dude. And he was a licensed plumber, ran projects, but had a couple rental properties. And you'd hear his vacations were different. They weren't just Mexico, right? Mm-hmm. He had some extra running around money. He had a new truck. Okay, how's he doing this? And so I learned from him. So my first property was a rental property. I lived on the main floor and rented out the basement.
How's hacking?
Gutted it myself. My family's all university educated. They thought I was crazy.
Hey, by the way, when was that? 20?
I was 23.
23, okay.
I was 23 and I'm 31. So,
9 years ago.
Yeah, 8-9 years ago.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so that was I bought my first house for $239.
Nice.
On
Hamilton?
on Fennel. Yeah, on Fennel.
Nice.
My family thought I was crazy, absolutely out to lunch. Super concerned for me. How are you going to pay your mortgage? What are you going to do? I did a vendor not a vendor take back. I did a home improvement loan through my mortgage broker at the time. Went through that process. And then the next challenge was kind of like when I opened my business. So you're saying like kind of getting out of that mentality to kind of loop back to answer your question. The big thing to answer that question was I thought I was doing it at the time. You don't know what you don't know. This was before Instagram. You don't get exposed to as much of that stuff. Mm-hmm. I remember back in the day we had the Chive, and that was a website. It was like, cool shirts and women on this Chive app, which I don't think it was an app. I think it was a website. But that was kind of the first iteration of like post Facebook. Like it was just Facebook, and you get off Facebook, it's just friends and ads and stuff like that. It wasn't this motivational quotes and information and podcasts, stuff like that.
Right.
So it was kind of, it took a while to get out of the mindset.
So how many properties did you buy at the time before you quit your full-time job and start your own plumbing business?
Yeah, so within about 6 months to a year, I had bought my first property, bought my first new vehicle, and quit my job.
Wow.
That's really quick.
Yeah, so super dumb. Going back again, it's like, setting yourself up for success. I definitely didn't. What I know now, I ran the business for a year and a half on, I think, a $10,000 visa, no line of credit, which is just challenging and unnecessary challenges, right? People are going to owe you money, and that's part of our industry. Not having a bankroll because I didn't have any money made me kind of strapped for growth. I was calling a lot of people late at night on Fridays, and they said they were going to have a check running around the city.
Wow.
Well,
the accounts receivable.
You're talking about for the business, right?
Yeah,
So
for the business.
Yeah.
Accounts receivable.
Yeah.
Because our industry, you do the work, you give the bill, you have to wait, get a check. Hopefully they pay. At the time, I would have done anything, painted your fence or.
Well, you got to broaden out, because the whole thing about the trades work in general, and when you're in any kind of service base like that, you're competing with a lot of other people, and you're hungry for money, and especially if you're trying to start your own business, you start to broaden out all the services that you can do. And one of the things, at least for me, I would love to hear your take on this, was when you're in trades and you're working for other people, chasing people for money is the worst, especially after you go and do the work, especially if it's hard work. And you have to go chase people for money.
Definitely like a huge part of our industry. I mean, at any point we're owed $500,000 to $1 million. How do you bankroll that? I remember when we were owed $50,000. I remember telling Katie, who was my administrator at the time, I said, there's no way we're ever getting this high again. Now, that would be an amazing number to be at. But when you're doing the volume that we started to do, that's the point, right? Things get bigger, numbers get larger. I see the Monopoly stuff on the wall here, and it's like, that's what it is. Like, you end up playing with Monopoly money. You don't ever see it. It's just money in and money out. And then you work on understanding the values and cash flow and stuff like that.
Walk us through a little bit on the challenge in the first or second year, right? Running this business, because one of the things that we've been telling people is that you need to have an active business that's drawing you income. If you want to be a full-time real estate investor, you still need to be running a business, right? And in your case, you're running the business, you're the real estate investor. You bought your first property, and how did you scale up from there? I just want to know the business side and the real estate side. I
think it's a conversation more about entrepreneurship. When you're an entry-level entrepreneur, the shiny objects are very, very close together. There's lots of them. I always tell the story. I almost opened a salad bar, Leaf on Lock, with a couple of great friends of mine. The reason was, it was like you started making a little bit of money that was more than a paycheck, and you just think flips. No one's talking about long-term holds at that point, right? Too early. We're so thinking about the now. As an entry-level entrepreneur, it's always, I need more money now. I want to buy more stuff. I want to use that money to invest in other things. One of the things I got caught in is 8 streams of business.
Oh, yeah.
You want it now or yesterday. And that's where I find people need to identify, look a little bit further and understand that decision, because residential real estate is great, but you need in Canada a ton of capital. When you're investing in a business and real estate at the same time, I say pick one. I got caught with a lot of realtors, hanging out with a lot of realtors. That's their life. Not my life. And if they go crush it and have a great month without any employees, they can make an extra 20, 30K. If, I'm talking at the high scale, but they can really take it and do more deals, get more money. Whereas for us, I have to create infrastructure, hire employees, buy vans. There's a ton of upfront capital that's like building a 100-story building. You don't see anything for a long time. They're building the foundation. We made the decision after I remember my 5th van, I used to say up till van 5, this is my last van. Should be good after this. I think we're at 20 vans right now. it was like at van 5, I was like, okay, I'll just buy another van when I need another van instead of this one's good, this will be the last one.
So it was all the capital reinvested back into the business, and there was just no profit basically because you're in a growing I guess growing phase, right?
Yeah, when you're building a business, there's owner operator, there's lifestyle, and then there's corporation. If you want to break it out into 3. If you're building a corporation, you're building it so that you have people in place that are high value people, that are key people in the business, that you're allowed to scale. We sell time, we sell experiences, we sell products. At the end of the day, every large scale business, what do they all have in common? If you get into a situation where it's, you can build a large scale business with subcontracting people, but in our industry, we wanted, if a guest employee is coming to your house, it's going to be a guest employee. It's not going to be a subcontractor.
In-house, yeah.
Yeah. So you have to invest a lot. We're building that base still. Even with 20 employees, I still feel like we're building a base. I don't know if we're on the ground yet, which is pretty cool. So those next 100 stories, you'll see them, but they're going to come quick. But you got to build the base, I think, in any business. And what I find a lot of people do is they want to build a 10-story building quick.
Yeah.
They're building a really small base, throw up a 10-story.
And they just fell.
Even if it doesn't fall, that might just be what they want. Whereas I think in business, you need to ask yourself the question, what are you really looking for? And a lifestyle brand for a lot of people can make really good money, but you're involved quite a bit. And, you run a lot of things through the business. Whereas when you're a corporation, your personal expenses aren't getting run through the business because other people are seeing the financial. And if Dan Guest comes in and says, oh, I bought a new boat this year, you guys don't get your profit sharing. It's not a good look, right? So you've got to take a salary, right? Take some dividends at the end of the year. But the business as a corporation, you kind of want to look at it like it almost gets audited, which I think is the direction we're going. But it's not for everybody.
And why do you say that? You've
got to ask yourself what you like. There was 2 styles of mentor for me. I've since identified it. Probably the last 1.5 to 2 years was key. The first level of mentor, he talks about don't get too big. People are out to get you. Clients won't pay. Staff will steal. Stay the size you are. You'll make good money. It's a great living.
Mm-hmm. Lean and mean, so to speak.
Lean and mean. Yeah, lean and mean. That's a great example. Lean and mean. Mentor number 2, the thrive. This is what you thrive to be. All they talk about is people. Our team is fantastic. Our people are great. Our customers are our blood. Our partnerships with our suppliers are everything to us. Relationships are key, and they talk nothing about themselves. The first level of mentor got me to where I was. Now it's like, wow, you look at any big business, the visionary or the lead or the face of the company just talks about how great the team is. But you've got to live it. There's going to be people along the way that steal, lie, cheat, screw you over for cash. But that can't deter you from the end goal, which is people are fantastic. The next generation is great. It's not that they don't want to work. It's not that they're not educated. It's not that they're not motivated. It's not that they want to sit behind a computer. You're not talking to the right ones. You used to be that person.
Yes, we were.
It's an interesting topic when you're talking about people and you're saying, the next generation sucks. Well, you used to suck. You used to not know anything. You used to be a dumbass. So teach them, right? Your kids are a great picture of what you've taught your kids. Building that level of ownership when it comes to the team, the staff, the people, the management, the culture. A lot of people talk about culture, but don't actually have any culture in place. And just say, oh, it's great in here. I got some shit on the wall. Cool. What's it like to work for you? Do you hold your cool or do you yell? Do you have a temper? Are you a kid in a candy store that didn't get his way or her way, right? And we find that's where you've got to actually practice what you preach. And it's not preach what you practice. You've got to understand that it's really easy to listen to the podcast than read the book. It's so much more challenging to be calm in chaos. And that's the power, right? That's the differentiator.
It's not as simple as just listening to whatever you listen to on the podcast and then trying to employ it, because conceptually it's all very high level and you can listen to the stuff. It sounds great, right? It's like fortune cookie stuff.
Yeah.
Right. But the minute you start trying to employ it, it's like, okay, culture. How do I instill my values into someone else? That's why people put on the wall. Doesn't always work, but that's why they put on the wall, right? And then also you train people. You invest time, emotion, feelings into bringing people up, and then they leave.
Yeah.
Right. Somebody they get pushed or something, or times get hard, you lose them, and that's demoralizing. This is why people sometimes say, okay, I'm just going to stop here because this is manageable.
Yep.
And you are right. That shift from a small business, lean and mean operation to, let's say, empire, is in some respects simpler, but it's also there's some nitty gritty components, especially in trades. What you're doing, I find it so impressive because it's actually a messy industry overall. There's so many logistical considerations when it comes to you name them. stealing, lying,
Right.
scamming hours, doing whatever.
And also, a lot of businesses, people come to you guys, but in this business, you send people out, which
Totally.
means the supervising part is going to be very challenging.
Yeah, like the management. I have
Yeah.
questions now about like inventory.
Yeah.
Damage, like vehicle management. Staff personnel, people not showing up. There's so many logistical things that there's no manual teaching you this is how you set this up, because you're an entrepreneur. You're building your own business. This is your own systems, your own process, your own culture, your own values. That is where it gets so messy.
Back to that people conversation about like, what if they leave and what are they going to do? It's like, we just had a going away party for one of our younger staff who went through his entire apprenticeship through Guest. He's our first, apprentice to start at Guest, finish at Guest. So, that takes 5 years. So he's been with us almost 6 years now, and he just left. He's just starting his own thing. So normally it's like, well, how do you live the culture? Well, we had a party for him, right? Yes, you're leaving, but you gave your 2 weeks notice, and thank you for your service. It's so great that you spent your time here. It was so amazing that I could educate you and our team could grow and learn. And then at the end of that apprenticeship, he's teaching the next generation of apprentices. So he's giving back as well. Well, now he's going off and being an entrepreneur on his own. So many people that I've, heard from, oh man, why are you happy about that? I was able to give an opportunity to someone that was like me, that started with nothing and now has something. That's a gift. Right? Like, what better feeling than that? There's nothing. People find, well, with time comes ownership. That's not how it works with people. You don't own people when you own a business. You're there to serve them. We are of service. The owner is here to service, right? And if you live a service lifestyle, you're going to get a lot more out of everybody. What a good manager does is ask how they can support others. They have their own tasks, yes. But getting into, acts of service, it comes from a point of, everybody sweeps, we say at the office, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who cleans off the piss on the toilet seat? Whoever sees it, right? It's not, that's for that person. It's whoever sees it. And if someone comes in and didn't do it, that's okay. You saw it, you're going to clean it. And, having that mantra and understanding that you've got to live it just because you read the book, how many assholes do you know read Think Like a Monk?
Yeah. Exactly. No, so what you're describing is a servant leader, right? And you're trying to bridge the gap between the upper management to the people who are on the ground level as close as possible, so that the voice can be, I guess, or the communication can be very transparent. So question for you, how do you actually build a culture in your organization? Because just because you think that way and you have a very healthy mindset with the people, your management or people who are closer to you may not have the same mentality. How do you actually bridge that with everybody and really execute it?
Over the years, it's kind of enhanced in a lot of different ways. One is definitely create some mantras. So create some mantras in your business that are memorable, but precise, and then you've got to own it. And everything's always got to be okay at the top. No one cares about my problems, which is fine. That's the point. They're not important, but I have to care about everybody's problems. And then you have to instill that into management. So what we do is we have a couple mantras. So one is we do look in the mirror. So before you assume blame on somebody else, we look in the mirror and we ask ourselves these 3 questions. Have I set the right expectation? Have I given them the tools to succeed? And have I supported them along the way? And what I find from a culture perspective is if you keep reiterating the same thing over and over and over again, now I touch 8 people in the office. They're talking that language day in and day out. Now, all my managers that are taking on the field staff, they're talking that language. Now, the leaders in the field, they're talking that language. We also have a mantra 131. Before you can come to me with your problem that I need to solve, identify the problem, 3 potential solutions, the best solution that you think is right. Once you come to me with those, I'll help you. I'll solidify what you think, or I'll give you some advice. But just imagine as a manager that's running 15 technicians, every single person coming with every single problem.
Yeah.
But again, the new person coming into the business doesn't understand that process. They just call with all the problems for a couple of reasons. They don't want to make mistakes. They don't want to cost the company any money. No one's intentionally, at least no one that's going to last long, is intentionally doing something wrong. And that's culture. No one wants to mess up. If you get it out of your head that if someone's messing up, that just means that person might need more support. That's how you can dive in and listen. Sarah's doing great. Praise Sarah. Don't forget about Sarah just because you're spending all your time with Jim. Jim needs that extra support. That's okay. There's a bunch of different positions on a football team. Quarterback's the one they focus on, but the O-line's probably really important because that quarterback's got to get the ball off. So being able to kind of identify that everyone's has a role on the team and then living that culture through, I say mantras are definitely number 1. Living it through problems. We have a gauntlet. We have a hallway, a bunch of offices on each side. My mood going into that hallway sets the entire tone for the business for the day. If I'm in a good mood, I'm usually already in, but usually I'll walk out. And then ask intelligent questions to learn more about the people around you. So one of the things we do in our business is, what was the best part of your weekend? We never ask, how's it going? It's good. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
That shit. What was the best part of your weekend? What's your biggest challenge right now? What are you most excited for? So 3 questions that you can really now engage, but also connect within the business at any level. I found out one of my, young apprentices is into cars. I found out another guy loves to game. Found another guy on the weekend. He's doing Amazon dropshipping. If I say, how's it going? Never going to learn that information. Not his fault. It's my fault. So taking some ownership. And another thing we use, not to, bore you guys too much, but we don't say stress at the office. So how was your day? Stressful. Why? Super busy, man. Super stressful. As entrepreneurs and leaders, of course we were busy. It was challenging. Super challenging day, man. Feel accomplished then, eh? Yeah, I smoked a lot of things. Yeah, I did actually. Got a lot done. You going to crush it tomorrow? Hell yeah. Just need a break right now. You can't overcome a stress, but you can overcome a challenge.
Right.
So if it's stressful, it's challenging. If it's stress, it's a challenge.
Yeah, there's a couple of saying. One is that don't deal with the stress, deal with the situation. So if you know the situation is going to lead to any stress, deal with that situation ASAP so that you don't get stressful. And second thing is don't give your pain any voice.
I like
right?
that.
Because the moment that you say something, you're emphasizing how you feel, then you start feeling it. Right? I'm stressed. What if you said, I just need a little break? Yeah, I just need a little break.
Yeah.
No big deal.
We do wisdom walks.
Yeah.
Wisdom walks in the office. You look overwhelmed. Let's go for a wisdom walk.
Yeah.
We have a building out in Ancaster, and there's like it's a nice little walk. So,
Nice.
it's a 5-minute walk that we can kind of like at any time anybody can take. No one's questioning them. Go for a wisdom walk.
It actually helps.
Yeah.
Huge.
Helps a lot.
Yeah, we used to do that all the time. Actually, just go down like a trail or something, or if we want to drive to the water or something, right? And it's like
great.
it's remarkable how much it opens up your mind. If you have to make decisions, it's really, really helpful. And then you see like the bosses who are managing their team, and they're just like, "Where are you going? How long are you going to be?" Right? And that obviously doesn't foster a really great atmosphere. I can see why people veer away from it.
I think it's challenging too for a lot of people to understand what to do and why, especially when the business isn't doing well or someone's not meeting a deadline, but yet they can do more. I think you've got to look at their capacity and you got to say, am I expecting too much out of this person or this role, or is this actually more of a role? I think a lot of people look at a person as a solution for a problem instead of a position. So we've identified for us, and I mean, as you grow, you push the ability of certain positions for sure. As you go through it, it's, what is this position versus like overworking a person that can do multiple positions.
When did you start developing this kind of mindset? Because you were literally just talking about you were being a plumber and you didn't see a lot of future ahead of you, right? Like how did you transition yourself into more like an entrepreneur and or start thinking like a true leader?
Couple one hitters for sure, but a good friend of mine, a realtor, Nate Farrow, shout out to Nate. He helped me through an interesting time. I got in his car one day, he had a new Range Rover at the time, and I'm like, I'm a music guy. Normally music's in the background, doesn't matter. Always music going on. And I got in his Range Rover and I'm like, why are we listening to the radio? I'm like, there's Apple CarPlay. We both have phones. Like, what's going on here? I can't stand commercials. And he goes, oh, when you're not in the car, I drive around by myself a lot. I'm a realtor. He goes, I listen to a podcast. I go, what the hell's a podcast? This was 5-6 years ago. He's like, oh, it's great, man. It's, two people talking, sometimes just one person giving their opinion. I go, yeah, sure. You're just a realtor. You're a realtor with way too much time. I'm an entrepreneur. I can't be listening to this stuff.
Yeah.
And I also used to say, I don't read good because I don't, I have, you can call it ADHD, whatever you want to call it. But like, I always used to have a really hard time focusing on books. That was just me coming up with an excuse that I couldn't control my mind. But so all of a sudden I got on these podcasts and I found myself listening to a couple of people that really stood out was Andy Frisella and Ed Milet. They were very influential. Same with Gary Vee at the time. I've just never heard someone speak at that level from a level of mentorship without knowing them. Like I didn't know these people. I didn't know people that thought like that. So I found it really, really interesting with podcasts. And then I just went in a couple really deep dives and just consistently. And then that's how I started a podcast because Gary Vee kept saying, you got to put out content. You got to put out content. Everyone should have a podcast. And I'm like, I can't listen to something, agree with him, and not do what he's saying. So here we are.
When was it?
So I started the podcast 3 years ago after about 2 years of listening to it. So I'd say 5 years I started on the journey. And then I really made the conscious decision of if I'm listening it and consuming it, I'm acting on it. And I think I've read 12 books now, which for me is an incredible accomplishment. Yeah, like it's probably been 2.5 years of reading books, but really reading thoughtful books, Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey, Think Like a Monk, like Jay Shetty, Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. Like, there's a lot of really great books that I think, Negotiate Without Fear. I'm not exactly sure who that was written by. And then, from a management perspective, there's a book called Traction, which is based on an organization called EOS. Mm-hmm. So that's really helped scale the business from an organizational standpoint. It's infectious. Learning like this is infectious, and seeing results is even more. And I also find it's like finding like-minded people to, you can have conversations like this that you want to just stay in forever. That's where like the magic happens. It's like, and what about this? And what about
that? Yeah. There's a lot of considerations that end up coming into play, and the people who are doing this, whether you're a business entrepreneur, you're a real estate entrepreneur, there's going to be similar challenges that when you follow people who have walked this walk and have found solutions or have found ways to maneuver them, you end up resonating with them, and you end up finding communities of people who actually truly understand it. Like, honestly, some of the logistical things that you've probably faced, I'm sure we've faced them, and it's like the ways people go about overcoming them. We probably read some of the same books that led us to certain solutions. But then we've also probably read and heard from people, like, and this would lead to my question with podcasts, what do you do when you find contradicting philosophies where they're both kind of right, totally, but you end up like saying, yeah, that's kind of right. And then you start getting distracted by like different perspectives and how to go. It's kind of like the shiny object thing distracting you.
Andy Frisella and Ed Milet, they speak together a lot. They're conflicting a lot. Andy Frisella is like, he's got a fuck you attitude, and he's a hard ass, a 75 heart, gotta kill everybody. And then Ed Milet is this like nice, soft-spoken guy. He's intense, but he's very spiritual, God first, stuff like that. I found it kind of like a nice yin and yang. I ended up going a bit too soft at the beginning to really find like, okay, where do I fit in? But I think you have to overconsume a little bit, and then you just have to make a decision yourself. But always be open to it. Like, always be open to that new idea. And I think once you kind of like harness that and say, you know what, this is how I feel right now. This is how I feel today. That's what I'm going to go with. And just be like, I'm going to own this for a little bit. This is where I'm going to stand. It's always challenging when you're in a circle where that idea or thought is different and you're pushing it on others. That's the other thing I noticed. Like, you can't push this lifestyle on others. You have to kind of guide them down a path, and there's a fork eventually, and you got to let them make a decision. If they want to come, keep going, sure, but they can leave. And I think that comes down to like friends and close family. You're on this positive journey where entrepreneurship's great and people are awesome and lifestyles are different and we can do more with ourselves and our bodies and our minds. Some people are like, I'm good, man. This is a great idea, but I'm making good money. I have kids and I have a family. I've got enough. And I think identifying that from the people that you're getting advice from is really important. Like, I'm 31. I always said, there's a lot of 45-year-olds that are doing really well. But in my opinion, they've had a good job, a good career. They're going to have a nice house, decent car, maybe a Sunday car, a family, probably going a couple trips a year. That's good. Not what I want. I want a lot more. So just identifying, just because they're older doesn't mean they need to be the person that you're taking the advice from, because they have more than you now, if you're looking at material things.
You listen to Simon Sinek?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So he's one of the guys that always kind of rubs me in some ways the wrong way. And it's not because he's saying anything wrong. It's just he's an idealist, right? He's got those ideals, and I think those are they're on one end of the spectrum. And then there's some other people that I listen to are on the other end of the spectrum, and you kind of try to land at where you resonate best, right? But I know that Simon Sinek, he talks a lot about like bringing people up, and especially when it comes to the businessman and having employees, and how you need to grow your team, right? And bring them up. And then I listened to another guy who says, your employees don't care about the same things you do. He says they don't care about the potential of raises. They don't care about the potential of, shares of the company, whatever timeshare you might offer as a benefit. They're motivated by the absence of an income. And, that goes against, what Simon would say, where it's just like roll with the iron rod versus like, building people up kind of thing. And then you end up trying to strike these balances of like, who's responding to what. And sometimes you look at the people and you realize that different people respond to different things.
Yeah.
And now you're torn between like, am I building my business around these people, or am I just building the business? And if this guy isn't responding to me, is that the wrong fit? And there's a lot of figuring out where it's like, it might sound like it's clear in specific examples, but it's not clear. At least I don't find it's clear. I always struggle with it, right? So I don't know if you find yourself like torn when it comes to employing these philosophies.
Yeah, man, you're hitting a lot of feels right now. This is good. I think at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself a couple questions. And one is more money going to make you more happy? At what point is money enough? What is your passion? And defining that, like a couple years ago, that was, what are your core values? Positive energy, quality service, response times. Like, I didn't know them a couple years ago. We went through an exercise through EOS, which we actually like unpack that, which was amazing. But when you're talking about, okay, Simon Sinek, start with why. Great philosophy. The guy that's talking about your employees don't care, everyone's out to get you, just make profit. Who do you want to be? I see a lot of young entrepreneurs that I try to mentor. They'd be like, I want to take on Reliance. I just want to be huge. Okay, what about Reliance is so great that you want to be like? You don't think they have great customer service. You think they're out to get people. They oversell, underdeliver, rip people off, whatever you want to say. Why do you want to be like them? Reliance is an incredible company, especially at scale. They offer some incredible service, do a couple of employees because they've got sales targets and they're commission based, make some poor decisions. 5,000 employees, you're going to get a couple of those. That's scale. That's economies of scale. So understanding it's like, well, why do you want to be like that person? What is admirable about that? And I think you have to make that decision. What I did is I found out my passion is people. There's no better feeling than me helping somebody. Once I have a certain amount of net worth, there's not going to be any overvaluing thing. That someone saying, you changed my life, you helped me. You did something different.
Oh, yeah.
You impacted my life. There's no better feeling. I'm going to make a lot of money as an entrepreneur and a business owner and a leader, but there's going to be no better feeling. No one's going to give me $100,000 is going to make me feel better than what I did and gave the opportunity from Jesse, who did his apprenticeship with me and now starting his own business. If you said, hire a guy now, he's going to finish with you, but he's going to leave, or 100 grand, I'd pick that guy 100 of 100. Every single time.
Did you have this kind of mentality when you first started? Or this was more like a formed as you grow the business?
Definitely formed. And I think found. Like, I don't think it was like a checkbox option when I started. I think it was discovered, but also learned to be understood. Like everyone tells you all the time, don't take that deal. That guy's no good. Well, you don't know that guy. Maybe I have a better relationship with that guy. And then that guy stiffs you. No one's going to tell me otherwise, especially at the entry level of your entrepreneurship. Now, after being stiffed a couple times, I take more advice.
I don't know, but this is kind of like stereotypes sometimes, right? Like some stereotypes, somebody said it best, where it's like, it's not that they're always completely true, but they echo truth.
One thing I learned in industry, so my mom's side of the family is Jewish, right? I wouldn't have called the company Eisenberg Plumbing. That would have been poor. Maybe if it was an accounting or a law firm. From an understanding, I've worked with the Dutch. I work with the Vietnamese. I work with the British. It doesn't matter. Everyone's cheap if you find the right people. So there's the stereotypes as soon as you get into business is all those people don't pay. You just have to learn how to manage people. Different cultures are different cultures, right? My grandfather never bought liquor in a restaurant. He's super generous, but he just couldn't value spending $6 on a bottle of beer at the time for a bottle of beer you can get for $1.25. Just didn't get it. There was no service there. He's opening a cab. If you made him a cocktail, there's value there. There's all these different stereotypes of like, you just got to break down those walls. Like there's an excuse for everybody.
Yeah.
A lot of the times we see it in the labor force. Nobody wants to work anywhere. That company's really successful. No one wants to work for you. No one wants to work for your business. Like I always ask the question, would you work for you? Not the entrepreneur you, but you as an employee. Would you work for you? And really ask yourself that question because we do it all the time. Say we have a little bit of extra turnover. Man, what's going on? Would I work for me right now? What's missing? And that's a really good way to constantly evolve and constantly enhance, not just like, we need better employee retention.
Yeah, it's a self-reflection part.
I mean,
it's huge.
Like I consider that a lot of the people that we work with, I consider them to be unique individuals. And I actually think that to work as part of our team, you have to be a little unique, let's just say. Okay? and that's actually, advantageous and problematic at the same time because these unique people have unique skill sets and then it's hard to kind of like replicate and scale sometimes. So challenges, but it has its place. But when you have unique people, if you consider yourself unique and you say, would I work for me? You might be unique in the sense that you might not, your spirit would just not be satisfied working for yourself. So is that really a right question? Because sometimes you need to think from your position, sometimes you need to think from that of others.
Totally.
And that's challenging, right? How do you put yourself in that shoes? You don't want the same thing other people want.
Yeah, and I think you need to find the people that are around you, like that supplement you really well. If I talk to some of our younger apprentices, it scared the shit out of them with some of the ideas I had and the plans we did. You have to be in control of those. But also you need to put the person in there that has the time to listen. That's the nice thing about building a team. You look at your strengths and you attack your weaknesses with others. I'm not the person that has all the time in the world anymore. I'm learning to gain my time back. So I have more time to ask these questions, dive in a little bit deeper, right? Find out a little bit more. But a lot of people the culture officer, there's a local company that does an incredible job of staffing, equal parts hospitality. Jason Cassis is the owner. He does an incredible job. He goes, Dan, I'm not everything in this business. He goes, we have a person that is the philanthropist of culture. She has a budget to spend each month and each year based on the core value of their business, which is to support the person and do something nice for every single person in the business outside of work. So they have a budget for buying flowers on an anniversary, sending them a bottle of champagne, taking them to a concert, something outside, external, but thoughtful from someone that can do it. He's not the one doing it, but he knows it's important. You can challenge it, but it's just identifying. Most of the owners are a little weird, right? We're a little crazy. So our upper level of management, they know I'm crazy.
Yeah.
We call it the box. Dan's in his box. Just let him bounce around in there. And then when he comes out, he's probably got a good idea. 5 years ago, my box was open all the time. Everybody heard every idea. And I scared a lot of people away because I'd say something one day and then I'd totally change my mind and it changed the direction. This person didn't hear it. Last week we were doing something else. Told my wife. I'm not a liar. I'm just an entrepreneur. I'm just an
entrepreneur.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah.
You got to be able to change with the times, but you got to have the people around you that know you. And I think vulnerability is key there. Being vulnerable with your staff is really important. I think showing them struggles and sacrifice sometimes is unnecessary, but I definitely think, the more vulnerable you can be and the more you can share, the better the relationship, and it allows them to be open with it as well.
For anybody who wants to be an entrepreneur and who might be in trades, how did they actually get into this industry and be able to acquire customers and start scaling up with their business?
Gary Vee has a quote, it's jab, 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 right hook. Everybody's heard that now, especially if you're in real estate or marketing at all. And really, when was the last time that you asked somebody how to help them? Smile, a little bit of a shoulder, like shock. And they're like, oh, actually, this is how you can help. And so when you're entering into the leadership space, you don't know shit. So it's how can I help? And the only way you can help is if you understand what the person's needs are. Asking questions is key, and then acting on those answers. Anybody that's doing anything, any genuine leader, he or she is happy to give advice as long as you don't ask the same question twice. And if you're not taking action on the answer, they will have no time for you very quickly. So one of the things that I did at first when this was maybe 4 years ago, I was having a lot of people because they saw the brand that exploding, and this was pre-COVID, right? And everybody's like, you're just doing so great. There's always chaos behind the curtain. What that means is people would ask me what to do. I'd tell them how to do it, and then they wouldn't do it. And I would give them any time of day. So what I started doing was saying, yeah, I've got all the time in the world for me. Could you just fill out this small planner for me and then set an appointment with my assistant? And then I've got all the time in the world for you. And so now my level of mentorship is I have all the time in the world for anybody, but take initiative, actually want it. You have to do the work. And the work's it's not always that it's so hard. It's just that you have to put in a little bit of work, right? You have to put on your mask first, and then I'll help you out. So anybody that's wanting to get in, right? Say you're at an entry level job and you want to maybe get into management. Ask your manager what else you can do. Ask if there's any overtime. Ask if there's anything they need help with. Ask if there's a special project they can help and work on. They're not expecting you to know much, right? How do you get experience without having experience? Well, you ask questions and you learn. Hey, is there any courses you think I could take to get better at IT? I feel like I'm adding value, but I want to be better. And if you ask for money before you ask to learn, it's not that you're an idiot. It's that no one's taught you what I'm about to say, which is, you do more than what you're paid for, and then you get paid for more than what you do. It's simplicity. And the way I worked my way up to leadership and management when I was 21 and through my apprenticeship was I worked with the guy that did all the overtime. So I got all the hours. So I did my 5-year apprenticeship in 4 years because I worked more hours. So I didn't do less hours in more time. I did more hours in less time. And then I worked every Saturday and Sunday with him so that they saw that, he was dedicated and motivated, even at a young age, because for me, we talked about it earlier, but that 10-year spread of my internal mentor, he was my jumping block. He was the person in front of me. Whatever industry you're in, just identify who's ahead of you. Ask them what you can help with. You'll never get shut down.
That is a great point, because when people who just got into the industry, their market value or market price is probably right here when you don't know enough, right? If right now you're trying to haggle with your price, it just prevents you from earning that kind of skill set, which is high income skill set. Earn that skill set and then you can ask for more. Most people do the opposite.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people understand that there are so many gaps in what it is that we need to learn in general that you're not going to learn from university, you're not going to learn from college, and you're just not going to learn these things. You're going to learn it from people.
Yep.
And you have to be able to get in a room with them, and actually for them to spend enough time with you, you also have to offer value. And I find this to be interesting, I find it to be common common amongst people who go to university, college, and they have this the worker bee mentality, which comes to that if I'm going to do anything with you, I need to be compensated. It's hard. People sometimes don't understand that from an employer's perspective, they have to invest so much into the person, right? And they think they're bringing more value to you sometimes, but really that's a mutual relationship. So it's hard for people to understand.
Cost of training is extremely high.
Yeah, I used to think if my boss was charging $100 an hour and I was getting paid 30, he made 70 right in his pocket. I didn't know any better, right? So I think as employers, we have to educate as well, right? If that's where you're kind of constantly getting stuck, take a minute, show them a P&L. What's the worst that can happen? You're showing them that you make more than they do or less than they do, right?
Sometimes, yeah.
You know, if you're in an office setting, have someone price out all the consumables. Buy these cups, pens, paper. They don't know what it costs when they're printing things for no reason. They don't know how much printer ink is. They don't know what electricity bill is. Ask them to do a small tasks that are outside of their scope. It'll show you as a leader how much they don't know. And it's not to throw it in their face. It's just like, you don't know what you don't know. We went paperless because I had to keep replacing printer ink. So why are we printing these things off? Like, can we not do this online? Can we not be better? It wasn't just from the fact that I want to be green. It was a fact from, wow, like a ton and the paper. And then we'd shred it. Like, you know, why are we doing this? Just so we can check the box and send it to that person, put it on their desk, and then that's someone else's desk. It's super interesting. Just take some more ownership. But it's also like sometimes you don't know how to be creative without getting inspired.
Okay, people who, let's say, who's done all the training, the 5-year training, all that stuff, and want to start their own business, any advices on them in terms of how to actually get business? Like, do you do the exact same thing with the customers, like in terms of building a relationship, or how do you break into the marketplace? You've
got to learn. There's a great organization at the city of Hamilton, actually, which is called Starter Company Plus program. My mom actually found it for me once I was in business, but it's a very entry level into business.
It's like 5,000 grant.
Yeah, right? It's a $5,000 grant. It's not worth your money if you're working. Your time is way more valuable. That's not the point of the program. The point of the program is to learn what you don't know, identify some things that are pretty cool out there. And then, you know, my next piece of advice was just to get involved in as many associations as you can, to just learn and be a sponge. You know, I love the Denzel Washington quote as you fall forward, you know, talking about, well, you've got this trade and you can always go back. But I think it's more about, you know, when I got to the end of my career, I always asked myself, because I didn't want to open a business. My goal was just to stay employed and do real estate. My mind went from, I got to do all these side jobs on the weekends and the evening, to I can become an amazing employee by working Saturday at my work, be a rock star. Everybody loves me. My boss thinks I'm great. I'm doing all the right things. I'm making the same or maybe a little bit less money because of taxes, but there's no, like, I still go home at the end of the day. I'm not worried about it. Whereas the side hustle, which is like, you know, doing side jobs, working for cash, getting calls on the weekend, especially in our industry, it's like, man, you don't sleep. And to your employer, who you're sticking with at the time anyways, they're like, what are you doing? Like, you're coming to work tired. You're not in it. You're always trying to scurry out. You know, you're taking phone calls at work. So I made that transition, and I, you know, talk about getting into leadership. I doubled my speed of growth. Like, you know, at 23, being able to be a junior, whatever you want to call it, junior site super. You know, I worked under a guy that we did hospitals and schools and education centers. I was 10 years young, right? Like, I was a kid. I was going to meetings and just asking me where the help is. So, you know, I think that if that answers your question.
Yeah, you emphasize a lot on the self-education part. Yeah, so I think that's what everybody needs to spend the time and invest in themselves in the very beginning.
Yeah.
And then ask where to do it, right? If you don't know where to go, like, you know, everything's online. It's like, it's a really hard place to navigate. So find somebody that's done it and then ask them.
Why did you make that decision on opening up the shop in Etobicoke when everybody's trying to scale it down?
So we actually said Etobicoke to keep the internal staff not so scared. But so it's our Toronto branch. We just said Etobicoke to not scare people. You know, it's been a 2-year plan, and I heard a great quote. It's not the right time. It's not the right time. Just do it. And a friend of mine, he goes, no, it's always the right time. And, you know, making a decision to say, there's never going to be a perfect opportunity. It's never going to make sense. And what if? I would say, what's the worst that can happen? My mom loves me. She's a good cook. She's got a room in her basement. So why not go for it? And there's a couple challenges that come up in terms of cash flow and obviously banking and strategy and stuff like that. What I asked myself about 2 years ago is, what's the plan? It's cool to have this goal, but what is the plan? How am I going to do it? Who's going to be there? How's the team going to affect it? So I put a 2-year plan in place, and we're just rolling out the 2 years. Interest rates are not affecting my plan. So understanding that, there's things that we're going to double down on, there's things that we're going to adapt to, but, I rented a condo in Toronto last year for the first time to do some research. There was some heavy planning going into it that I was trying not to affect the day to day. And then really it's just pull the trigger and execute. There's always going to be challenges, whether it's here, there, anywhere else. And what we wanted to do was really, we service our clients really well within 45 minutes. Coming from Ancaster to Toronto in 45 minutes doesn't make any sense, right? It's not going to happen. So if we open our branch in Toronto, located in Etobicoke, we're going to be able to service our clients all the way from Ancaster to Brampton to Mississauga to North York in a timely fashion, really spending a lot of time Hamilton, Burlington, Oakville, and then Oakville, Mississauga, Toronto. People are like, oh, Toronto's a scary place. If you're an entrepreneur, that's what we look for, right? You don't want to be in the B division. You want to play in the A division. Finding a passion for entrepreneurship and saying, okay, I don't need to recreate the wheel. I just need to pump up the tire. We're pumping up the tires at a rapid speed, and we've got the people. And as soon as I made that switch to people, that's it.
Yeah. Did you have the customer base first, or you were just like open up and then we'll figure it out?
No, it's all in the plan. So, slow and steady wins the race. Again, if you want to talk Simon Sinek, we're playing the infinite game. So it's not about, we got to do this because we got to get to here because we got to sell. Sometimes there's those reasons. For us, it's not. For us, it's building out that customer base internally. We've got a 6-month lead up marketing plan that I've already, planning on the rollout. Google supports a lot of our business. We've got a lot of contractors out there. We have a client outreach program that was ready to go in place. We've got a training program for our managers that are going to be going out there, an onboarding plan for our technicians that are going out there. I ordered 10 vans a year and a half ago so that they're starting to, we got to pick up 2 tomorrow. So starting to roll all these things in, right? But without that plan, it's, we're going to Toronto. I need vans. Try to get a van right now. You can't. So, for anybody opening a business or making a decision to open a business or go anywhere, take some time to plan. If you've never planned, that's the perfect opportunity to learn how, rather than figure it out. It works. It's just going to hurt more. And if you don't know how to do it or how to figure it out, that's where you can do some learning at some less expensive rate when you don't have the overhead, you don't have the cash flow issues, you don't have the people problems. You're never going to be 100% ready, but it means you're always ready. So,
yes,
you know what I mean? You're never ready. You're always ready.
Yeah.
When I heard that, I was like, I'm a big word person. And, thank you, Tio. I think a lot of Hamiltonians know Tio Marin. He was one of those guys. He goes, Dan, because I was like, you're never ready. You'll just go for it. Right. Which is a positive statement.
Mm-hmm.
You're never going to be ready. Just do it. He's like, no, Dan, you're always ready. It's like gives a God on my shoulder speaking down to me. I was just like, this is awesome.
It is all about what it is that person needs, especially what that person needs to hear, because people get stuck in this planning phase and then it's paralyzing. And then some people are just doing things and they're totally reckless, right? And it's good if you land somewhere in between that kind of matches your capacity and your sleeping balance, right? How well do you sleep? So, it's good for that. No, it's just because when you don't plan, you're just like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Right? Yeah. You're just wondering. But honestly, the thing about planning too is that people sometimes seek certainty. And I find that certainty is not the greatest thing to seek. It's something to aim towards. But the thing is that people are never going to be completely certain. Everything people do, I find, will in some way or fashion or form pay off. It's just a matter of how much it pays off and how long it takes to pay off. That is the variable, but it will pay off, right?
Why do you think accountants are in business? Accountants are accountants for a reason, right? They're too risk adverse. They run the numbers, and a lot of the times they don't make any sense, so they don't get into business. Right? Just imagine looking at businesses all day, every day.
Imagine if some of the businesses accountants were looking at the actual numbers, and they're just like, this looks. I don't know how you're gonna turn this around. Yeah, because they get caught in that 1 year market, right? The 1 year margin. There's this really cool podcast called How I Built This. I remember the first maybe 3 episodes I listened to. They were talking about it's by Guy Raz, and he always asks the question, when were you profitable? Or were you profitable at this point? And they'll be like 7 years in. They'll be like, oh no. Or oh, we just became profitable. But I found that to be such an interesting answer because I was like, I connected profitability with success. You're not successful if you're not profitable. But in a business life cycle, if you're, again, building that base of the tower, you're building that 100-story building, you don't see anything for a long time. Yeah.
You're
And
not profitable until everything's done.
You're ready to go and you're rocking and rolling, right? If you can stay afloat with your cash flow and maybe you can, stay your head above water. But I just never heard that, especially in our industry. It was always, what'd you make this year? Are you going to make more next year? Are you going to make more next year? Because you're talking to bankers and lawyers. But your small business banker doesn't own a business, and your accountant doing your numbers doesn't own a business. And sometimes your mortgage broker doesn't own a house. So make sure that when you're getting information from people, they've at least seen enough of what success looks like. They're not that, teller, small business banker, corporate banker that hasn't seen enough success, right? You want your mortgage broker to have a mortgage. You want your accountant to be a little bit in the industry. He wasn't just someone doing data analyst. I think it's interesting when you kind of pull back the skin.
You obviously have a lot of great things to share. So if anybody does want to get in touch with you, maybe they want to pick your brain or they want to get in touch with your company, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Yeah, if you want to, give us a call, we've got our number. You'll see it on the link. But then our website's awesome. We just launched our Shopify site within the website. Now we're selling barbecues and fireplaces as well.
Nice.
All the gas appliances get you going.
Yeah.
But yeah, and if you want to chat business or chat leadership, I'm always open.
Yeah.
I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to send you those questionnaires and see if you respond. But
Nice.
Sounds
we'll get
good.
it going.
We'll make sure to have some info. It's really great having your show.
Yeah, thanks so much, man.